Well, hey there, it's Catherine from CatherinePuller.com. I'm going to do some stenciling in this video. I pulled a few from my stash. At Catherine Puller Designs, we have a bunch of different stencils for you to choose from. We have geometrics, we have patterns, we have different images, and we're always adding to our collection. In this one, we're going to start out with a scattered circle stencil. So I used a little bit of purple tape on the back here to secure my cardstock to the stencil so it won't slip around while I'm stenciling. And I'm using my life-changing brushes for this. I'm using a smaller one because I want to concentrate and make sure that when I'm stenciling and ink blending the ink over the top of the stencil, I want to get it right down into those circles. So I'm stenciling over, and you'll notice also our ink is very translucent, so you can build up layers of color. So the more color you add down in there, the darker it's going to be. So this is Rockin red. But if I just do a light hand and I don't go over it a ton of times, it's going to be a much lighter shade. So you can even see between some of these polka dots, some are darker and some are lighter. So that's kind of a fun kind of variation you can get when stenciling. So next I'm taking my Lime Rickey ink pad and I'm doing the same thing, just ink blending that ink right over the stencil. And you'll also notice before I pulled the stencil off, I just took a very lightly damp paper towel and just rubbed it lightly over my stencil. You don't want to use too heavy or too wet of a paper towel because you don't want the cardstock underneath to get wet. You just want to be able to remove some of that ink, and that will help contain the ink mess. So I have my Lime Rickey and my Rockin red, and now it's time to add a medium. So this is Glacier paste. The color is Golden Era, and this Glacier paste has a really nice texture to it, and it has a glimmer as opposed to like a chunky glitter in it, and it goes on really smooth, and it's just gorgeous, and it's going to add a nice shimmer to the project. I'm using my Nuvo media spatula just to spread that around, and then when you're about done, you're going to want to try to get as much off the stencil as you can. And then look at this. It's really shimmery and really pretty. It's perfect for the holidays. We'll finish this later in the video. Next up, I'm going to use the Flourish and Whimsy stencil, and I'm actually going to use this like a stamp. So I'm going to add the ink directly to the stencil. I'm going to spray it with water, and then I'm going to lay it on watercolor cardstock. Now, of course, there's many different ways you can do this part. You can just lay it down, leave it for a second, and then pull it up. I wanted to spread, because once you lay that down, some of the ink and water is going to seep out into the open spaces. So then I used my finger to kind of move it around, and then it colored the places where the actual stencil is open. And then I thought, I want to add a little bit of ink here. So I grabbed my life-changing brush, my ink pad, and I just did a little ink blending in the opposite corners to just add a little bit more texture and color to the project. And then I'm going to use my heat tool to dry it. And you can see I have a really interesting looking background here. It's got a lot of great layers of color, and it has a lot of layers of texture to it. So before I clean this stencil up, that's one important thing when stenciling. Make sure you clean all of your supplies pretty quickly when you're done, especially when you're using mediums, because they will dry on your stencil, and they're really hard to get off. So I thought, hey, I'm going to get two pieces out of one stenciling technique. So before I cleaned that up, I just laid it right on top of a fresh sheet of watercolor paper. I'm going to press it down. I'm using a paper towel to kind of dry it up a little bit because I want to add some Nuvo mousse to it. I'm using Nuvo mousse in Mother of Pearl, and what I found worked best for me was using my fingers because this mousse is pretty thick, heavy. It's kind of hard. It's not very I don't know. I just found when I use the heat from my fingers to kind of soften it. That's the word I was looking for. It's kind of hard. So when I used the heat from my fingers to soften it up, it moved a lot better and was easier to kind of get in the nooks and crannies of the stencil. So that was really helpful to me. With the spatula, I found I had a little bit of a harder time getting all of the medium into all the crevices of my stencil. And the next project, I'm going to use Sea Spray Green with our Checkerboard Stencil. This Checkerboard Stencil is an absolute staple. I heart it. And it's going to look really cool on this finished project. This particular color of Nuvo Mousse goes beautifully with some of our spa colors, specifically our sage in the spa color line. I'm going to pull that stencil off and look at how beautiful this is. It's really a fun background. And then when the mousse is still wet, I'm just going to add glass slipper glitter over the top, and then it's going to be super sparkly. The only back or downside of this is that you're going to get glitter all over. So make sure you tap it off really well and get some of that glitter to fall off of that project so it doesn't end up all over the recipient. So here are the 4 technique pieces, and now it's time to assemble these into cards. I'm going to use that pink background, and I die cut 2 circles with our circle dies. I cut one through vellum cardstock, which you can find in our shop, and then I did a white piece of cardstock, and then I took our Winterhaven dies, and it has a like a wavy line die, so you can use that like as a hill or a snowbank or whatever. So I cut that out of the circle, so I have the vellum circle and then the cardstock circle that has kind of that wavy or that snowbank basically. And then I'm going to stamp my sentiment on the vellum cardstock. I'm using our Midnight Block. It's waterproof, but it does take a little bit to dry on that vellum, so just be careful. You might want to lightly hit it with a heat tool to get it to dry a little bit quicker so you don't smudge. So now I'm going to attach this gorgeous technique piece to a card base. So now the background is ready for some fun embellishments on top. I'm going to take that white cardstock partial circle, ink it up with embossing ink, and then sprinkle sparkling snow embossing glitter over the top. I'm going to tap that off and then heat it, and the bottom is going to look like a beautiful snowy hillside. And then the Winterhaven die, it has that curved piece that's great for snowbanks and grassy hills and whatnot. It also has these cute little houses and the little tree. There's a whole slew of little houses and a little church and different trees and stuff. It's so adorable. So I actually had those already die cut out. Sometimes I die cut extra images when I'm die cutting, and then I save them and then I have them for next time. Then I'm going to add my snowbank to the vellum cardstock die cut circles. I'm going to add my little trees and my house, and then I'm going to add the adhesive to anywhere that has like something on the other side. So where the sentiment is, the hill, the house, the trees, anywhere like that is safe, because then you won't see the glue on the other side. And now here is a look at this really cute card. Now the second technique piece that I made, where I added the Nuvo Embellishment Mousse, I just added a simple die cut Merry Christmas with this gorgeous elegant hand lettered font. I did some gold sequins, and then I just layered it with some white cardstock to just keep it minimal. So the next card for that checkerboard background, I'm going to use the Merry Mini cover plate, and all these die cuts that I already had from the Berries and Boughs stamp set, or Boughs and Berries, sorry. Boughs and Berries stamp set. Again, everything will be linked below so that you can see all of these items in the shop. And I used the Merry Mini cover plate. I die cut it. I cut the frame. So I cut the outside piece with the inside piece inside of it. Does that make sense? And then you get this frame. I actually had used that on another project and just had it on my desk, as well as these Boughs and Berries. So all of these pieces that I'm adding to these techniques, I already had, or most of them anyway, almost all of them. The Merry Christmas on the last card, I had that already die cut too. So I highly recommend when you're die cutting, die cut extra. Stamp and die cut extra. Have them on hand. It makes times like this where you're focusing on technique pieces, it makes your cards come together much quicker. So I'm just taking all of those poinsettias and the boughs and the berries and the greenery and just kind of placing them around that frame. This is a little bit of trial and error. I had already added dimensional adhesive all the way around that frame, but I haven't pushed it down really hard, so it's not really adhered to the card yet. And then I'm going to be able to stick pieces of the poinsettias and the leaves underneath the frame if I want. So I just focused on the bottom left-hand corner, and then I wanted to add a few to the top right corner as well. Pine cones, sprigs, poinsettias, berries. There's so many fun images in this Boughs and Berries stamp set. And if you are new here, this is a great time to invite you to subscribe to my channel. I love when we get new subscribers and you guys give us thumbs up and comment on our videos. I do read all of the comments on all of the videos. I don't always have the time to respond back, but I do read all of them, and I so appreciate all of you that take the time to comment on my videos. It really means a lot to me and the team, because a lot of the team, they pop in here and read comments too. So thank you so much for doing that. And it also tells YouTube that you like our content, and it helps us get pushed out more, and so other stampers can find our channel as well. So thank you so much for doing that. So once I had all of the greenery and the flowers the way I wanted them, I wanted to add some sequins. So I grabbed the Vegas Baby, which is our gold mix. There are holographic, metallic, there are some glittery ones in there, and it's a really great, gorgeous mix, especially for the holidays. So I just added a few in there, and then I grabbed this Joy word die. It comes from our Joy wreath. You can see it in the bottom left-hand corner peeking out there. This wreath is absolutely gorgeous. It has holly and berries and also mistletoe in it. But I just wanted to use the Joy, and I'm just going to nestle it right into the greenery right there. So the last card that we're going to assemble is actually the first card, or the first background that we made, but I'm starting here with a piece of cardstock. I just took a lime Rickey ink pad and direct to paper swiped it across my cardstock. So I made lime Rickey paper. I'm going to stamp my sentiment on there with embossing ink, and I'm going to add gold embossing powder to it. I'll just heat it, and you can see here's the magic. Embossing never gets old. So this turns to a gorgeous solid gold embossed sentiment. I'm just going to funnel that embossing powder right back into the jar. And then I'm going to trim it out, because this cardstock, you can tell, was left over from another project, had all kinds of things going on there, but I only needed this little strip. So I'm going to add it right to the bottom of this card. You see it's too long, but I'll just cut that down. Add some Nuvo glue. And I thought this card would be really cute with our new snowmen from the Build a Snowman stamp set. And again, this is one that I had already die cut all of these pieces. I had assembled some of the snowmen already, so I just added the top hat on. I had the noses stamped with orange peel, and I had them set aside. I did have to stamp the scarves, lime Rickey and Rockin red, and then I had die cut already the arms, so I'm just going to add those on. And I wanted the snowman to be holding the heart in between them, so I made sure to adhere the arms to the snowman in a position that worked for that. These turned out so cute. And I'm going to add some 3M mounting tape to the back so that the snowmen pop up off the card, and then I'll adhere them to the card with that heart in between them. They're so cute. And then I can leave them as is, but I've been having this peppermint stick background piece laying on my desk for a while, and I've been wanting to use it. So I thought this was a perfect time. So I just trimmed a little bit off so that I could add it to the bottom of the sentiment here. I'll just adhere it right on there, and that's it. Here's the look at the final 4 cards. They all have totally different looks to them, don't they? Leave me a comment and let me know which one is your favorite, which technique is your favorite, what did you love the most about this video. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you have an awesome holiday season, and we'll see you again on the next video.